Welcome to Live with the Eczema Doc, brought to you by Clean Body, where we believe that you can heal your skin from within by cleaning your body. I'm Dr. Fong, a naturopathic doctor specializing in eczema, and I'm here to guide you through the journey of understanding the root causes of your eczema so that you can finally achieve the clear, healthy skin you deserve. Each week, we combine research-backed insights, science-based strategies, and my years of clinical experience to uncover what's really triggering your eczema and how you can take control for lasting relief. Let's dive into today's episode and uncover the next step to healing your skin from within. Today, I am talking about how to break free from topical steroid withdrawal, also known as TSW. Now, this is a big topic and a very big emerging clinical problem in today's world, especially when it comes to people who have eczema, because one of the most commonly used medications are topical steroids. And when there are very acute situations, we're also using oral steroids. And so this is a very big problem because when topical steroids are being used repeatedly in large areas, and we'll kind of talk about the reasons behind why this is really an emerging clinical problem, then we really see that we end up with this, syndrome called topical steroid withdrawal. We also call this red skin syndrome, and we also call it topical steroid addiction. And it's very well known as TSW nowadays. Okay, so let's dive in. First off, I am really familiar with TSW. That's because I went through TSW myself. When I was pregnant with my daughter over 16 years ago, it was the first time in my life, in over 25 years of my life at that time, that I wanted to stop using topical steroids. So I stopped cold turkey when I found out I was pregnant, and I ended up getting what's called TSW, or red skin syndrome. And I basically had a sleeve of red on my arms. I had a sleeve of red on my neck, my torso, and it was red, oozing, hot, painful. I had fatigue. I couldn't sleep. I was in so much pain. So I know this very intimately. And now, as a naturopathic doctor and someone who specializes in eczema, TSW is something I encounter very, very frequently, unfortunately. And often when I'm seeing patients, we're not only dealing with eczema, but we're also dealing with TSW. And so we're going to look at how at Clean Body, we address and tackle TSW in a two-phase approach, because we can't just tackle eczema the same way, because it's not just eczema we're dealing with anymore. But let's talk first about what are the topical steroids that we might encounter. You might know some of these names: clobetasol, hydrocortisone, triamcinolone, and there are a number of other medications that are all topical steroids. And then, of course, there are oral steroids as well. Prednisone is one of the most common. So if you have ever taken any of these steroid medications, this is something that you really want to think about when you are using these topical and oral steroids. So how do steroids work? Well, steroids, or corticosteroids, really help to reduce inflammation when they are used. And so corticosteroids such as cortisol, for example, are produced by the adrenal glands, and they play a really vital role in regulating inflammation, your immune response, and even metabolism. So what happens is when your body encounters stress or inflammation, cortisol is released into the bloodstream, and it binds to these receptors in target cells. And once it is bound, cortisol really modulates the gene expression, leading to the suppression of pro-inflammatory genes and the upregulation of anti-inflammatory genes. And so what this results in is the inhibition of inflammatory mediators like cytokines. And this is, one of the ways that our medications work is really just kind of lowering, those cytokines, which cause the itchiness, like interleukin 4 and interleukin 13. And this really decreases that inflammatory response. Okay, so a lot of our medications do this, and not just topical steroids, but also, a lot of our biologic medications for eczema also target these cytokines. So this is just taking a different approach, and it's taking a more corticosteroid approach. Cortisol also does help with the skin barrier function. It also helps to promote tissue repair. And so it works beautifully, right? I mean, when we use topical steroids, it's almost like magic that inflammation on our skin just gets immediately better. So, of course, this is something we are going to use. And unfortunately, sometimes our doctors aren't educating us about how to use it. Sometimes they are, but we're just in, so much pain or we just want that really quick fix that we just use these corticosteroids in ways that we're not supposed to, even though our doctor has told us, use it for a short period of time, don't put on your face, etc. But you might be needing that immediate response. And so you just use it. So what happens is TSW. And, there are several risk factors for topical steroid withdrawal. So, first of all, if you use corticosteroids on your face, there is a 90% increase in the chance of getting TSW. So, that's why doctors may tell you, use it minimally on the face or don't use it on the face at all. If you have a history of atopy or, atopic dermatitis or eczema, then there's a 76% increase in your risk for TSW. If you use oral corticosteroids, there's a 42% increase. So things like prednisone, and typically these are used in those emergency situations. If you're female, unfortunately, there's a 79% increase in the risk for TSW. And this could be due to the hormones. Our hormones are very delicate and very complex. And when we disrupt those steroid hormones, we are not only disrupting cortisol or cortisones, we're also disrupting our sex hormones like estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, potentially, because they are in really similar pathways, and those are also steroid hormones. If you were over the age of 18, there's an 83% chance. So, we're seeing that adults are suffering from this more. If you are using corticosteroids of medium to high potency, this can be a problem too. So those higher potency steroids, so, if you're using something over the counter, you'll have less of a possibility for maybe getting TSW. But if you are using corticosteroids for a long period of time, even if it's those low potency steroids, if you're using these steroids for 6 months or more, you're having a 63% increase in the risk for TSW. Okay, so if we think about these items, then we can maybe say, okay, let's make sure that we are not using it on our face, that we're not using the corticosteroids every single day, for 6 months or longer. We're not using those medium to high potency steroids. We're using those low level steroids instead. Or we don't use these topical steroids at all, would maybe even be a better choice. And using these more as an emergency situation is how I would like you to think about it. Okay. So what are the causes of topical corticosteroid withdrawal, or how does it look? Well, if you continue using corticosteroids, you will eventually see this reduced response where you are going to need more and more and more of the corticosteroid, higher potencies, or just more frequent use. So when that happens and you start to get that reduced response, you're already starting the process of topical steroid withdrawal. Okay, so that's one thing. If you're noticing your topical steroids just aren't working anymore, then you want to start thinking, I need to start thinking about this. Okay, there is an upregulation of glucocorticoid receptor B, and this can contribute to a poor response to those topical steroids and then those withdrawal symptoms. Okay, when you are using topical steroids, you are actually suppressing your own cortisol production, and that is actually happening in your skin cells. And so when you take away those topical steroids, your body basically continues that suppression of its own cortisol production, and then you aren't getting that anti-inflammatory aspect that cortisol produces. There is a vasodilation that happens. So this is a rebound vasodilation. And that's where with TSW, we can see this redness, this heat emanating off of the skin, and it's burning and it's painful. And that is because initially when you use a topical steroid, you're going to have this vasoconstriction that happens. And then when you have the withdrawal, instead of that vasoconstriction, you're going to have a vasodilation. That means that all the vessels are going to open up and all that blood is going to flow through. And that's why you're going to get redness. There's a nitric oxide release that happens here that causes that redness or skin erythema. And then when you eliminate the topical steroids because they were promoting that skin barrier, you are now having a skin barrier disruption, which can lead to this rebound cytokine or inflammatory cascade that will happen that will cause more itchiness, more redness. So, altogether, it's not a great situation when we end up in a TSW situation. So there are so many symptoms that come with topical steroid withdrawal, and the list is very long. So let's go through that list because there are physical symptoms, not just skin symptoms. Because again, we're talking about corticosteroid withdrawal or cortisol withdrawal or cortisone withdrawal. And this is a adrenal hormone. This is a hormone that does so many things in the body. So when we are having withdrawal, we are having a problem with this hormone, and really that extends to almost all parts of our system. The physical symptoms include burning pain because of that vasodilation we talked about earlier, severe itch, skin sensitivity, insomnia because we're messing with the hormones, low mood. You're having an intolerance to emollients. So if you are someone who has started to have, like, you put anything on your skin and you're just having this intolerance, that could also be a symptom of TSW. Now, if we move on to the skin features, of course, we're going to have that red skin, elephant wrinkles. So you can see this kind of really thickened elephant skin. So it's just very wrinkly and thickened skin. Again, that red sleeve sign we talked about earlier. There's also a headlight sign. This is where the face is red, but the nose and the area around the mouth, or the perioral area around the mouth, is not red, but you have every other part of the face red, and we call that the headlight sign. You're going to see a lot of shedding of the skin, so a lot of flaking during parts of the healing process, and even edema, which means a swelling. So you might see like your legs are swelling up. And then along with that, you might see an exudate. So this is a fluid that is clear. It's often clear, a little bit yellowish tinted, and this is rich in proteins and cells, and this can indicate that there's inflammation, and the body is kind of sending these proteins to heal things, but you're seeing this exudate come out, so we call that skin oozing. Sometimes there are papules or nodules. These are little raised bumps that can vary in size, in some TSW cases, and then dilated blood vessels. So you can see little red blood vessels that you might see along with the redness of the skin. There are two different subtypes of TSW. So, when someone has eczema, we often see that the TSW looks more like redness, swelling, edema, burning, because it is kind of layered on top of eczema and atopic dermatitis. And then we have another type, which when steroids are used more for cosmetic reasons or pigmentation issues, we're seeing that this type is more exhibiting those little bumps like the papules and the pustules, and then also redness as well too. But this type may exhibit fewer symptoms of stinging and redness and swelling than someone who has atopic dermatitis underlying that TSW. There are several complications that come with TSW. Of course, that intense itching and the sleep disturbance is huge. So in phase 1 of our clean body approach, we are always addressing this first. If you have eczema, you're seeing a flare in the eczema plus the TSW. So you're getting a double whammy, unfortunately. Of course, you're open now to more cutaneous infections like staph infections and yeast infections on the skin, unfortunately, because everything is kind of opened and that skin barrier has really come down. We may also see depression and anxiety and even suicidal ideation, unfortunately, because this is a very difficult condition to go through. Personally, I understand this completely. I spent days in the bathtub. It was the only place I could feel comfortable because everything was just burning and everything was open and oozing. So I spent days in what I now call healing baths that I prescribe to my patients. But, it was so incredibly painful. And then a lot of times people will have a phobia for using steroids, and very understandably so. Right now, you don't want to use steroids at all, and very rightly so. Once you stop a topical steroid, how long does it take for TSW to happen? And that onset could be anywhere from 48 hours after you stop a topical steroid up to 3 months. So it may not be immediate, okay? Because you may see this rebound effect that happen a little bit later, and again, it can take up to 3 months. There are stages that will happen when you are healing from TSW, and the hope is, if you work with a team like ours at Clean Body, where we kind of give this 2-phase approach, which we'll talk about in a second. We hope that you go through these phases very quickly and you're good to go. So we're looking at, a patient here where she had a 4-month process, and that's a really fast process for healing TSW. But we're seeing that this first phase, stage 1, is where there's a lot of redness, a lot of inflammation. Then stage 2, we see exudate, so that oozing, and then scabbing of the skin. And then stage 3, we're going to see flaking. So a lot of flaking is just going to come off. It's kind of like as a snake, you're just shedding that old skin so that new skin can be revealed. And finally, we have that stage 4, which is remodeling. And this is where we're seeing, new skin, healthy skin coming up. And depending on what you are doing for TSW, this could be a long, drawn out process. This could become a secular process that just never ends. Hopefully, this is a process that goes through, 1 or 2 cycles, and then you clear it. And so how do you do that? Well, at Clean Body, we like to take a 2-phase approach. So phase 1, we have to deal with the TSW itself. So underlying, you might have eczema or maybe another condition, but we cannot deal with that right off the bat. And what we're going to do is give that immediate support for TSW. And what we're giving for that TSW is actually supporting the eczema as well. Okay. But that phase 1, we have to support the adrenals. So we might be doing things, and of course at Clean Body, we are mostly using all natural supplements, herbs, food, lifestyle, to support this. So adrenal support may include adrenal glandulars, adaptogenic herbs, maybe, vitamins like B vitamins and vitamin C, to support the adrenals to do the job that they need to do because they've been dormant for so long if you've been using a lot of topical steroids. We need to optimize sleep because sleep is often impaired in someone with TSW. So we might do, sleep hygiene things, of course, but then support, nutritional support, supplements and, anything to really help the system to calm down if it's very worked up. And often in a TSW situation, we might see that someone's cortisol is even elevated at night. We need immediate symptom relief. So, there's that redness and that burning. So I love treatments like cryotherapy or cold therapy to really lower and vasoconstrict and really close up all that redness. So I love cryotherapy, either at home or at a wellness center. And then, depending on what a patient is experiencing, we might do healing baths, like I talked about earlier. We might do different topicals, and sometimes we might do no topicals. So there is a type of treatment called no moisture therapy that we might also employ where we don't do any topicals because the person is also having emollient intolerance. And so that could be another thing we do. We also have to give nutritional support because the body is now needing nutritional support. And, at times our diet is not giving us that nutrition that we need for the body to start healing, for the adrenals to actually start working the way they need to work. And finally, we need to have mood balance support often. Often I will see that there is depression, anxiety, suicidal ideation. Depending on how long someone's been dealing with TSW, this is a very, very difficult thing to go through. And so we have to also support that. So phase 1, we are actually assessing this for our patients and trying to understand, okay, what pieces of this puzzle, often in a very severe TSW case, I need to do all 5 of these all at once. Supporting all of this so that the person can even just make it through the day to get to the next phase. And the next phase is where we actually start addressing the root causes of the eczema itself. Because TSW is a different problem, right? That's a problem because you were using topical steroids. Now, the second problem is, okay, why were you even using topical steroids in the first place? Well, it's because you had eczema. So with eczema, we now need to evaluate the root causes of eczema. That includes microbiome imbalances, toxic burden, leaky gut, leaky skin, nutritional factors, and lifestyle factors. We need to assess this and understand, okay, what root causes are present for you. And we need to make sure, though, that your adrenals are supported and all of that first. So that's why phase 1 comes first. And then phase 2 is where we really then tackle the eczema itself. Now, in phase 1, that may take anywhere from 1 month to 3 months, hopefully not longer than that. And then addressing the root causes of eczema typically takes a minimum of about 3 months. So when we're working with someone with TSW, we are sometimes seeing, a 4-month to 6-month process where we really need to do the 2 phases here. And as we saw earlier with one of my patients, it was a 4-month process. So that's really our best case scenario that, first of all, the patient is just gung-ho, like, let's do it. I'm ready to do it. Part of this is we need to have trust in the process. We need to have positivity. And it's very hard, understandably, to have positivity as we're going through this process. And the more positive someone is in, okay, my body's going to heal, I have to give it time, I understand the process that needs to happen here, then the faster that can really be. But I often see 4 months is typically the minimum time I see my patients really being able to kind of get through this. Our hormones, a lot of them have a lifespan of about 3 months. So, 3 months would definitely be a minimum overall time. And then, maybe a more of an average of anywhere from 4 to 6 months. If you want to understand a little bit more about the root causes of your eczema, if you're potentially having TSW, I do recommend that you take our free 3-minute eczema root cause assessment. That may help you to understand what those root causes are for you and, what would we need to address secondarily if you think you are going through TSW. So if you do think you are going through TSW, if you're listening to this and you're kind of like, oh my gosh, I'm going through all of these symptoms. Well, the first thing is, you need to get some support because this is something that's very difficult to go through on your own. A lot of times, it's just even hard to get through the day, as most of us know, if we have some of these symptoms. So having a really supportive team is very important. Having a team that understands TSW is very important. Unfortunately, in my practice, this is a big part of our practice. This is a lot of what we do for a lot of the people who come in. And a lot of them often don't even know they have TSW. I think that's one of the worst parts is like you're dealing with really a condition that's not necessarily, widely known or widely accepted in the conventional community, that your dermatologist may not have even told you that this is going on. Your dermatologist may not even be aware or know that this is a possibility. And hopefully your dermatologist does know and understand this, okay? So this is something you're dealing with. I definitely recommend, first off, taking the eczema root cause assessment, understanding what the root causes are for you so that you can maybe start to understand and address those items. But at the same time, really, really finding a team that can support you in this journey. And again, this is what we do at Clean Body. So our team is available for you if that's something that you are interested, okay? And if you are going through TSW, know that there is a light at the end of the tunnel. There is a way to get through, and there is a way to get through where you can get through this, within 4 to 6 months is really my experience. And hopefully that will be what you experience as well too. Thank you for joining Live with the Eczema Doc. I hope today's episode provided you with valuable insights and tools to support your journey to healing your skin from within. For more information, visit www.cleanbody.health or check the links in the podcast description. You'll find the studies and resources discussed today on my blog. You can also take my free eczema root cause assessment to uncover potential triggers or download my free eczema relief guide for quick, practical tips to calm flare-ups and help with your sleep. If you found this episode helpful, please remember to like, subscribe, and share the podcast to help others on their healing journey. And if you'd like to stay updated with future episodes, please turn on your notifications so you don't miss a thing. Please remember this podcast is for informational purposes only and does not constitute medical advice. Always consult with your healthcare provider or book a consultation with me before making any changes to your healthcare regimen. When you clean your body, you heal your skin from within. Thank you again for listening, and I'll see you next week.